Good morning. This is our daily lectionary readings for Wednesday, August 9th, 2023. With it being Wednesday, we're still looking back at what happened at church on Sunday. Thus, our psalm reading is once again going to be Psalm 78, 1 through 8, and 17 through 29. Our Old Testament reading is going to be from the book of Exodus, chapter 16, verses 2 through 15, and then 31 through 35. And our New Testament reading is going to be from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 15, verses 32 through 39. Let us listen in. Psalm 78. Listen, dear friends, to God's truth. Bend your ears to what I tell you. I'm chewing on the morsels of a proverb. I'll let you in on the sweet old truths. Stories we heard from our fathers. Counsel we learned at our mother's knee. We're not keeping this to ourselves. We're passing it along to the next generation. God's fame and fortune, the marvelous things that he has done. He planted a witness in Jacob, set his word firmly in Israel, then commanded our parents to teach it to their children, so the next generation would know, and all of the generations to come. Know the truth and tell the stories so that their children can trust in God, never forget the works of God, but keeps his commands to the letter. Heaven forbid they should be like their parents, bull-headed and bad, a fickle and faithless bunch who never stayed true to God. We pick up in 17. All they did was sin even more. Rebel in the desert against the high God. They tried to get their own way with God, clamored for favors, for special attention. They whined like spoiled children. Why can't God give us a decent meal in the desert? Sure, he struck the rock and the water flowed. Creeks cascaded from the rock. But how about some fresh baked bread? How about a nice cut of meat? When God heard that, he was furious. His anger flared against Jacob. He lost his temper with Israel. It was clear they didn't believe God, that no intention of trusting in his help. But God helped them anyway, commanded the clouds, and gave orders that opened the gates of heaven. He rained down showers of manna to eat. He gave them bread of heaven. They ate the bread of the mighty angels. He sent them all of the food that they could eat. He let east wind break loose from the skies, gave a strong push to the south wind. This time it was birds that rained down, succulent birds, an abundance of birds. He aimed them right for the center of their camp. All around their tents there were birds. They ate and had their fill. He handed them everything they craved on a platter. But their greed knew no bounds. They stuffed their mouth with more and more. Finally, God was fed up. His anger erupted. He cut down their brightest and best. He laid low Israel's finest young men. Our Old Testament reading, Exodus 16, 2 through 16. On the 15th day of the second month after they had left Egypt, the whole company of Israel moved on from Elim to the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai. The whole company of Israel complained against Moses and Aaron there in the wilderness. The Israelites said, "Why didn't God let us die in comfort in Egypt, where we had lamb stew and all the bread that we could eat? You brought us out into this wilderness to starve us to death, the whole company of Israel." God said to Moses, "I'm going to rain bread down from the skies for you. The people will go out and gather each day's ration. I'm going to test them to see if they live according to my teaching or not. On the sixth day, when they prepare what they have gathered, it will turn out to be twice as much as their daily ration. Moses and Aaron told the people of Israel, "This evening you know that it is God who brought you out of Egypt, and in the morning you will see the glory of God." Yes, he's listened to your complaints against him. You haven't been complaining against us, but against God. Moses said, "Since it will be God who gives you meat for your meal in the evening and fill of bread in the morning, it's God who will have listened to your complaints against him. Who are we in all of this? You haven't been complaining to us. You've been complaining to God." Moses instructed Aaron, "Tell the whole company of Israel, come near to God. He's heard your complaints." When Aaron gave out the instructions to the whole company of Israel, they turned to face the wilderness. And there it was, the glory of God visible in the cloud. God spoke to Moses, "I've listened to the complaints of the Israelites. Now tell them, at dusk you will eat meat, and at dawn you will eat your fill of bread. And you'll realize that I am God, your God." That evening, quail flew in and covered the camp, and in the morning there was a layer of dew all over the camp. When the layer of the dew had lifted, there on the wilderness ground was a fine, flaky something, fine as like frost on the ground. The Israelites took one look and said to one another, "Man, what is it?" They had no idea what it was, so Moses told them, "It's the bread God has given you to eat, and these are God's instructions. Gather enough for each person, about 2 quarts per person. Gather enough for everyone in your tent." The story continues. The Israelites named it manna. What is it? It looked like coriander seed, whitish, and it tasted like a cracker with honey. Moses said, "This is God's command. Keep a 2-quart jar of it, an omer, for future generations, so that they can see the bread that I fed you in the wilderness after I brought you out of Egypt." Moses told Aaron, "Take a jar and fill it with 2 quarts of manna. Place it before God, keeping it safe for future generations." Aaron did what God commanded Moses. He set it aside before the testimony to preserve it. The Israelites ate the manna for 40 years until they arrived at the land where they would settle down. They ate manna until they reached the border into Canaan. Our New Testament reading, the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 15, verses 32 through 39. But Jesus wasn't finished with them. He called his disciples and said, "I hurt for these people. For 3 days now they've been with me, and they have nothing to eat. I can't send them away without a meal. They'd probably collapse on the road." His disciples said, "But we're in this deserted place. Are you going to dig up enough food for a meal?" Jesus asked, "How much bread do you have?" 7 loaves, they said, plus a few fish. At that, Jesus directed the people to sit down. He took the 7 loaves and the fish, gave thanks, divided it up, and gave it to the people. Everyone ate. They had all they wanted. It took 7 large baskets to collect the leftovers. Over 4,000 people ate their fill after that meal. After Jesus sent them away, he climbed in a boat and crossed over to the Magadan Hills. And here ends our readings for the day.